Simple Plan doesn't currently have a bass player.
You gonna try out?
Or should I say they didn't have a bass player?
And now you're their bass player.
Welcome back, everybody, to the Balance for Life podcast, where our goal is to inspire you, to help you to become the best version of yourself that you can possibly be. Hopefully, something that we say here will be of use to you, and we can help you out. You know, it's been
a couple weeks,
Yeah.
so all of which is my fault.
Not all of which.
Well, okay.
I did go to an alien. Well, it wasn't really an alien convention.
Skinwalker Ranch.
Sure, yeah.
Thing.
We talked about the skinwalkers. We talked about aliens. We talked about treasure and giants. Lots of stuff.
Sounds fun.
You went on a cruise, though.
I went on a cruise, and
that would be awesome.
You know, that's like a germ fest. And on my way home, I started feeling sick. Like the day I was traveling home, and my wife too. We got super sick. COVID came back negative, and I didn't really think it was COVID. I know. It was worse than COVID, though. Seriously, I've had COVID once, and this was like a little bit worse. No,
Really?
I think it was like strep or something. It was pretty bad.
Strep sucks.
But I've been good now for like over a week. I just have this cough, so I'm going to be sucking on cough drops.
All right.
While we
Still
do
cough in my face.
Okay. I'll try not to. Okay, well, if you like what you hear, don't forget to like that 5-star, or hit the 5-star review button, or both.
Or both.
Join us on social media. We are at Balance for Life Podcast with the number 4. We're on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, Twitter. At Twitter, we're at Adam and Perry, all spelled out. And you can watch us on YouTube at Balance for Life. Just search Balance for Life, and you should find us.
There you go. We're everywhere.
Everywhere.
We're trying to take over the world.
Yeah.
We want to help everybody. So, all right, let's jump into it. You know, at some point, we've probably all heard about the physical benefits of exercise, right? Some people have probably heard about the mental benefits as well. Mm-hmm. But we wanted to kind of take it a few minutes today, maybe more than a few, but we wanted to talk a little bit about some of the internal benefits of exercise, more than just, bulking up or getting fit or being
losing
thin
weight.
Yeah. So we wanted to talk about some of the other things, right? So obviously we have the physical benefits. It's going to increase heart function, right? Your heart is just like any other muscle. And so as you work it, as you get it pumping a little bit faster, it's going to increase the function of it. Yeah. And so that's obviously one of the physical benefits that we're going to get from exercise.
We'll probably say this a lot. We are not for like extreme dieting, or really, I think weight loss in general is kind of a scam. Now, it is important to be healthy, and part of that is watching your weight. But the problem is, in our society, in our culture, we tend to go overboard with that. And so we think that should be the thing you're not focusing on.
Yeah,
that
exactly.
Should naturally be a byproduct of having a healthy lifestyle, including exercise.
Which I think it's ironic too. If you go back throughout our history, like my daughter we've been talking about like the history of body image, right? And how at one point, like in the Renaissance ages or the Middle Ages type, way back in history, where it was actually people who were more overweight, bigger people were considered to be more attractive because it was a sign of affluence. It was a sign of they had enough money to eat. Where people that were thin, it was a sign that they were too poor, and so they were not considered attractive. And then you go through these periods of time where, like in the 20s, it was like a box figure, right? It was flat on all sides, and there wasn't really a lot of curvature. And then you go through the 50s and 60s and 70s, and then you've got like just the different body types. Yeah. And so I think it's interesting how different times in our society, different times in our culture, and even different locations in our culture, what is considered attractive as far as weight goes. And so I think it's completely subjective as far as where you should be with your weight. There is, I think there are obviously, like you said, there are obviously some things that we need to think about that are going to be byproducts of that exercise and dieting and eating healthier, right? I think it's more about being healthy than it is about the number on the scale.
Yeah, that's what we want to advocate for, not the number on the scale, right?
Mm-hmm.
How are you feeling? Are you healthy? Are you taking care of your heart and all your organs? And do you have energy? Right.
And really, I think it's more about how do you feel about yourself. You know, like you said, do you have energy? Do you feel good? Do you feel confident? Are you able to wear the clothes that you want to wear and don't feel like you have to be limited in your lifestyle because of your weight? So I think those are all important physical aspects.
Yeah.
What we wanted to talk about today is a little bit more of the internal benefits of exercise, right? We want to talk more about the mental benefits and things like that. So I actually found this article. It came out of Greater Good Magazine. Came out of Greater Good Magazine, which is actually a publication out of Berkeley University. And this one came from, I don't know if she's a professor, he, she.
Yeah, Kelly's a very gender neutral
name. So I'm
don't know who
I guess
Kelly
we're not going to assume
is, but
I'm not exactly sure what their position is. But Kelly McGonigal in Greater Good Magazine came out with this article a couple of years ago, and it was the 5 surprising ways exercise changes your brain. So I wanted to refer a little bit to that. I thought it was very interesting. And
I read through it. It was really good.
Yeah, it's a really good article. So I think some of the things that we want to talk about. The first point that this article hits on is the exercise high, right? We hear about the runner's high. We hear about,
which I have never experienced.
Neither have I. I just
maybe I should try.
Yeah. But the exercise high primes you to connect with others because the chemicals that are being released, like it makes you more outgoing. Makes you feel more confident. And fills you with energy. And so it's one way that you can actually be primed to want to connect with others. And it makes you feel better about it that way. So I think that was a really good point.
It just gets you ready for making those connections, right? It increases your ability to make those connections.
Yeah, definitely. Absolutely.
And then the second point is that exercise can make your brain more sensitive to joy. Yeah. And so you're more likely to feel happiness, to feel joy, if you're exercising regularly.
Yeah.
And so it has this huge impact on one of our other pillars, which is that emotional, mental health, right?
Absolutely. Third point that we want to talk about is exercise actually makes you brave, right? And I think it works in a couple of different ways. One is it obviously, like we've been talking about with these other 2 points and with everything else, it gives you more confidence because you feel better about yourself. But having that challenging thing that you accomplish, right? It makes you feel more
like you can accomplish other challenging things.
Yeah. And so when challenges come your way, you're like, oh, well, if I've ran a marathon or a half marathon, or if I've done a Spartan race, or if I've done this strongman competition, or whatever it is that you've accomplished, right? Even if it's that you went from a sedentary lifestyle, sitting on the couch constantly, to I can now jog a mile, that is an accomplishment, and it makes you feel more courageous that you can accomplish other challenges that come along.
And this makes a lot of sense. Think about other things that you have done that aren't related to exercise that have been huge accomplishments. You worked your way up to a position in a company that maybe was a huge accomplishment, and now you feel like you're better at negotiating, you're better at leading others just because you've accomplish something. It makes you feel like you can accomplish other hard things. And so exercise is the same way. Exercise in general is difficult.
Yeah.
That's like the very nature of it. And so when you accomplish something, you get to where you can do a certain amount of pull-ups or run a certain distance. It makes you feel a sense of accomplishment, makes you feel like you can accomplish other great things.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Moving with others or exercising with others builds trust and belonging. And I've actually experienced this personally. I do not like running by myself. If I'm running with other people, I actually kind of enjoy it. as long as they are less fit than me. Okay, funny little side story. I had a neighbor when we lived in our last neighborhood who we were taught, he had kind of lost some weight. He was looking really fit, and he just looked like he had energy. And I commented on that. I was like, hey, you look like you've been exercising, you know? And he said, yeah, I've been running like, it was like 4 miles every day. I was like, oh, that's awesome. I'm really wanting to get into shape, you know, and so I've been playing basketball, trying to do a couple other things, and he invited me to go jogging with him. And I told him, I don't think I'm going to be able to keep up with you. And he said, I go really slow. Like, you'll be able to keep up with me, I promise. Guess what? I could not keep up with him.
So he didn't go that slow.
No, it was not that slow. Like, maybe compared to people who run marathons all the time, it might have been slow. Compared to me, I mean, in high school, I probably would have been fine. So we go about a mile. I keep up with him, and I'm like, I can keep that pace for about a mile. And then I couldn't anymore. My knee started hurting.
Oh.
And so he goes a certain distance, and then he comes back, right? So I was like, you go the rest of the way. I'm just going to start heading back. After like 30 more minutes, he catches up with me, and I'm like, okay, I'm just going to jog with him the rest of the way back. I couldn't, like, my knee was hurting so bad, and it hurt for like a week. Part of the point of that is don't overdo it. Like, work your way into it, right? He thought, like, he's played basketball with me. He thought I'd be able to keep up with him. Running 4 miles straight is a lot different than playing basketball.
It's true.
So anyway, but I do enjoy exercising with others as long as I can keep up with them. So my wife and I will jog together sometimes, and we go at the same pace, and we feel this connection with each other. It's really true. We do. We feel like we are bonding as we do anything together. So of course, exercise is going to be one of those things where you can bond with each other.
Right. Well, yeah, and I think you're releasing these chemicals, and you're going through this challenging situation, and I think we're all aware that when you go through a challenging situation with another person, it helps to strengthen those bonds. And so I think that's really good.
Yeah.
Good point there. And then the last one is trying anything new, and especially when it's something that has to do with your health. It helps to transform your self-image. You're accomplishing something. It's kind of putting you down this different path, and it's helping you feel better about yourself, feel more confident, all those things that we've been talking about. So I think all those points are really, really good things. And I think it was just an interesting take on this idea of exercise, and how it, one of the things that we like to talk about is balance, and talking about the idea that all of these different pillars interact with each other and relate to each other. And so talking about exercise typically has been a physical pillar, right? It's part of our physical pillar, which is an obvious byproduct of exercise. But I think one of the things that we tend to diminish a lot of times when we talk about exercise is the idea that it's actually changing the chemicals that we're releasing, and it's actually releasing these chemicals that we've talked about before, right? Our happiness chemicals.
But we're going to talk about them again.
Absolutely.
Just in case you haven't seen any other of our episodes, and all of this is common knowledge. We didn't make any of this up. But these chemicals that get released as you exercise, these happiness chemicals, the first one we're going to talk about is dopamine. And so, when we achieve our fitness goals, that our body or our brain releases dopamine, and that makes us feel good, right? Dopamine, it gives you that extra oomph to like get to the end of what you're doing, right?
Well, I think there's some people that don't quite understand what dopamine actually is.
Yeah.
But
you want to let them know?
But I think there are a lot of people that do understand what dopamine is. But for those of you that don't, dopamine is actually what they call a feel-good chemical, right? So it's what your brain releases as you're about to achieve something to make you want to keep going with that. So when we talk about addictions, right, dopamine is what your body releases when you start to think about that thing, that whatever it is. So when we talk about addiction, it's actually more often than not, it's more an addiction to the dopamine hit that we get. So dopamine can be a negative thing as well. But when we use artificial ways of stimulating that, when we do it in a natural way, getting that dopamine hit. But this is one of the things that we also want to talk about with overdoing it, right? That's another thing that we've talked about a lot is we don't want to overdo it. We want to balance it. And so I think talking about exercise specifically this week, exercise is another thing that you can become addicted to because your body's releasing dopamine while you do it. And so it is another thing that we can become addicted to. And so as you exercise and your body's releasing this dopamine, we also want to be careful that we're not doing too much.
Yeah.
Right? There is a point where it's too much. So going for a jog with your spouse or your partner or a friend, right? Going to the gym with somebody else. Those kind of things are all good things. But when we're spending hours upon hours a day in the gym,
or you're running like 10 miles every day, that might be too much. And
we're neglecting other responsibilities that we should be taking care of. So we want to be careful. We want to balance that, right? That's the whole purpose of this podcast, is to find balance. So we want to talk about the benefits. We also want to talk about being careful with that. So with the dopamine is the feel-good chemical. It's the high that you get. It's the thing that makes you want to keep going.
Yeah.
And so as we release that, the other thing that we're going to get with that's going to make you feel good and kind of contribute to that high of exercise is the endorphins. And that when we talked about the happiness chemicals early on in the podcast, the dopamine and the endorphins are what we referred to as the selfish chemicals, right? They're the ones that we release by ourselves, that are there just specifically for us as individuals to help motivate us to keep going. So the endorphins is typically what we refer to as a runner's high. So it's that euphoric state that a lot of people feel that we already said that we've never felt that before.
I mean, we felt endorphins probably, but
maybe we just haven't
running.
Ran far enough to get the endorphins.
That's probably it.
I don't know. Another thing that the endorphins do that contributes to that high is they actually are going to mask the pain. So endorphins are one of the things that our body releases after the initial dopamine hit, right? So after we start doing something and we start to get tired, we start to get sore, our legs start cramping up, our knees start to hurt, whatever it is, the endorphins are what your body is going to start to release to cover up that pain.
Like that second wind.
Yeah.
I have experienced that, just not while jogging.
Right.
While playing basketball.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think that's pretty common playing sports.
Yeah.
You see somebody,
boost of energy suddenly.
Yeah. I think that's probably why they take halftime breaks.
Yeah.
To give them a little bit of a rest, and then they can come back and their body has time to catch up to those endorphins.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think that's something else to keep in mind there is the endorphins are going to kind of mask the pain. But on the flip side of that, talking about the balance, right? And the flip side of that, too much endorphins could actually mask a serious injury. And so we want to be kind of careful with that as well. We want to be careful that we're not overdoing it again. We're not hurting ourselves and causing damage to our body. Again, too much of anything is not a good thing. And so we want to make sure that we're not causing damage to ligaments, to joints, to muscles, all those things.
Definitely. So the next one is the first of the, what do you call them? Selfless chemicals. Right? And that's serotonin. So it's a natural mood booster.
Yeah.
That's one of the reasons why if you exercise regularly, you're more likely to be happy because your brain releases serotonin.
And that's why you don't shoot your husband.
It's the endorphins and the serotonin. I mean, there's a lot of things, right? It makes you happy. So it's a natural mood booster. It improves your sleep as well. And so now, most people have probably experienced if you exercise right before bed, you might have a hard time falling asleep, right? But if you exercise in the afternoon or in the morning, and you're the type of person that regularly exercises, it's going to help you sleep better as well. And that's super important because if you can't function without caffeine, then you're drinking caffeine all the time, and that has other implications.
What are you trying to say, Barry?
But my goal, and I'm not quite there, but my goal is to get to the point where I feel energetic throughout the day without caffeine. I don't drink caffeine very often, but I still sometimes feel like I need it, even when I don't drink it or intake it, right? So one of my goals is I'm trying to sleep better, I'm trying to exercise better but not overdo it, to get to the point where I every day just feel like I have the natural energy I need to get through the day. I have actually felt that way before. There was a period of time where I was sleeping well, like before I had kids. I was exercising, and I feel like everything's lined up for me to do that again. So that's my goal. Like exercise a little bit every day and get to bed at a decent hour and sleep well, sleep throughout the night, have my conditions set up in my room. And I want to get to the point where I just feel like I have enough energy to get through the day.
There you go. I like that. You know, you mentioned the not exercising at night, and I think it's interesting. This is something, one of the reasons why I've really been interested in this concept the last several months about balance is when you look at exercise, when you look at diet, when you look at really anything, it's so funny to me. Like, you can get on social media, right, and one motivation app or one fitness app is going to be talking about exercise in the morning. It's the best thing you can do for your body. Or talking about diet. Don't eat carbs. Eat higher protein. Eat this, eat that. You know, do these things. And then literally like the next post in your feed will be exercising at night. Here's the benefits of exercising right before bed. And you know, your body needs carbs, and you know, you'll have one coach that talks about a cheat day, and then you'll have another coach that's like, cheat days are bad, and then, you know, so it's just like, that's the whole thing for me, is it really doesn't matter what you decide to do. Yeah, you're going to find research. You're going to find people out there that are going to say that this is the way to do it right, and this is the way to do it wrong. Yeah, and I think the key here is it's whatever works for you. There are benefits to exercising at night. One of the downsides to it is, as you exercise, your body's releasing adrenaline, which is going to obviously make you more energized, right? It's going to pump that circulation, which is kind of what we do with caffeine. It's going to be a stimulant, but it's also going to tire you out, make you exhausted, and as you kind of come down from that, it's going to help you feel more relaxed, right?
And I think one of the keys there is, like you said, do what works for you. And you may be able to exercise in the evening or at night, and then have a routine after that helps you prepare your brain for bed and get that kind of adrenaline to go through your body and be able to fall asleep well. And so it's, I'm glad you pointed that out, because I wasn't trying to say don't exercise at night, just saying that, like, when I play basketball at night, I'll finish at like 10:30, and then I won't be able to fall asleep till after midnight. But I also don't do anything else after to try to prepare myself mentally and kind of segue from that exercising to it's sleep time now. And but I think there are things you can do to do that.
Yeah. So like, one of the things that I remember, it's been several years ago, but I was preparing to go with, it was a Boy Scout group, and we were going to hike Kings Peak, which, those of you that are not in Utah, Kings Peak is the highest point in Utah. It's almost 14,000 feet. It's like 13.5 or 13.8, something like that. But it's the highest point in Utah, and it's actually a really fun little trip. So I was prepping myself to do that, and so I was jogging about 2 miles, and I would do it at night. I would do it like 9 o'clock at night, get the kids in bed, and then put on my headlamp, and I'd go for a jog. And then I would get home, and I would feel the same way. It was, you know, you're stimulated. It gets all the chemicals pumping, gets your blood flowing, all that kind of stuff. And then I would come home, and I would stretch and kind of cool down for a little bit, take a hot shower, which is another thing. We talk about exercise and dieting and things like that. There's also experts that will talk about the differences between hot showers and cold showers. And some people are like, oh, you have to take cold showers because it's going to be so much better for you. And then other people are like, you have to take hot showers because it's so much better for you.
So just go hot, cold a few times.
So again, it's just what works best for you. Yeah. We don't want to tell you what's the best thing for you. It's whatever works best for you. So I'm just saying, there are benefits if you do choose to exercise at night, as long as you do have that routine afterwards, like you mentioned.
What we are going to say is exercising is best for you. You should do it, okay? But how you exercise, when you exercise, where you exercise, we're going to leave that up to you. But what we want you to do is to do it.
Yes, exactly. We're going to talk about the benefits of eating healthier. We're going to talk about the benefits of exercise. We're going to talk about the benefits of attending spiritual groups, all of those kind of things. The specifics of it is, again, balance. It's what works best for you. So
definitely.
Yeah.
Let's see. I think the last one we have is oxytocin, right?
Yeah, so the last one. So these two selfless chemicals are the ones that bring community and helps, the serotonin helps to build your mood, help you feel better. And then we have the oxytocin, which is the other happiness chemical that our brain releases. It's the other selfless chemical. So, and this is the one that we kind of touched on with our fourth point from the article in Greater Good magazine, is exercising with other people. A lot of times, and this is something else that I think we've touched on in previous episodes, is accountability partners.
Yeah.
And exercising with somebody else. For me, I know specifically, if I'm doing it on my own, it's very easy to not do it. And so, like, it's interesting. My wife and I, we don't exercise together. We don't go to the gym together. We have a couple of times, but we don't do it together. But one thing that we do have is I finally got an Apple Watch, and so we have our rings, and it's less of a competition and more of just like, hey, check out what I did, and then we can feel cool together, right?
Yeah.
Like if we both close our rings on the same day, or like the other night we went to the Simple Plan and Sum 41 concert, which was epic. But yeah, it was funny because both of us were laughing when we walked away because we were like, check it out, I closed all my rings at the concert. So yeah, so
I got a ton of steps in while I was jumping up and down.
Yeah, it's really crazy when you can go in with your exercise ring at like a quarter, and 4 hours later after a concert, all three rings are closed.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah.
That's awesome.
So yeah, but it's this idea of community and bringing people closer together and having that moment to share together. And,
right. Whether you're exercising together or you're just sharing your results.
Yeah.
Exactly. So, I think that's why exercise classes are so popular. Right?
Absolutely.
People have this sense of community with their exercise group. My sister has kind of built her own business where she leads exercise classes.
Okay.
And, she has just this regular group of mostly women who join her for this exercise, and she's, they're empowering each other, and they have a sense of community, and they're fit, they're happier, right? So,
yeah, which I think is, you mentioned the empowering each other, and I think that's kind of the key there, is you get a group of people and you're kind of pushing each other along. I remember when I was in high school, and I was not a very big kid in high school. I was probably 135 pounds.
That's how much I weighed. You must have been really skinny, because I was skinny.
I was a small kid in high school, but I remember
5'6", just so everyone knows, and Adam's
I'm
like 5'10", 5'11".
5'11",
Yeah.
Depends on how straight I can stand up on a given day.
Depends on when I had my last haircut. So.
But yeah, so I was a pretty small kid in high school, and I remember my sophomore year, I was thinking I was hot shot and wanted to play football. That didn't last very long. I quickly changed. But I was playing football, and we had to take weightlifting classes, which I'm not saying have to, as in it's a bad thing, but it was a requirement as part of the football team. And so I was taking these weightlifting classes in high school with other football players. There were guys that I played football with that were over 300 pounds.
Yeah.
There was some big kids in my school. We had a couple of Polynesians.
Yeah.
That were just solid and
could
massive.
Like bench so much.
Yeah. So like I think I remember there was one kid, one lineman in one of my classes. He was a senior when I was a sophomore. And I want to say I watched him put up like 350 pounds. And I watched our coach one day. One of the great, like, most amazing people I've ever met in my life. Spiritual, mental, physical, everything. Just one of the most amazing people. But I watched him one day put up close to 400 pounds. Ooh. Just like, there was some big dudes. And my weightlifting partner was a kid that was my age. And So we were working out together, and he was quite a bit bigger than I was. He was a fighter. He was, he's a tough kid, and it pushed me. And by the end of my sophomore year in that weightlifting class, I was able to bench press my max. When I first started the class, my max was like 150, 160 pounds. When we got done with that class, I was maxing 205 or 210.
Nice. Yeah.
So I was putting up well over my body weight, but it was because I was watching these guys around me that were putting up so much. And when we would be taking our turn and our spotter was pushing us, and that's what we're talking about, is the accountability partners, the spotter that's going to push you and motivate you to want to do more.
Yeah.
So
yeah, there's a lot of benefits to that. So that's a really good segue, though, into our weekly challenge, because we want to help you feel these chemicals. That's our goal. We're trying to feel these chemicals more, to be happier. And so our challenge for this week is to move at least 3 days.
Yeah.
We don't mean move from one house to another, right? We mean exercise. So exercise.
Yeah. You don't need to physically move locations.
But you can move your couches to the other side of the living room if that's how you want to get your exercise.
Yeah. And when we talk about movement, again, we've already mentioned this. We're not going to tell you how to do it. We're not going to tell you that you have to lift weights. We're not going to tell you that you have to use specific machines. We're not going to tell you what type of splits you should do, right? That's not what this is about. It's just about getting your body moving, getting the blood flowing, getting those chemicals released. Find an accountability partner. Find somebody that can be there with you, that can motivate you and help you and build those relationships. So those of you that are already doing it more than that, feel free to keep going. Those of you that are already on a path or already have a goal that you're trying to accomplish, that's awesome. This challenge is kind of a minimum challenge, and I think that's kind of what we set for all of our challenges is a minimum challenge, basically, just for those people who need a starting point. So if you are in need of a starting point, I would highly recommend that. 3 days a week, take a walk, get up and have a dance party, right? Yeah. Sometimes get your kids around, turn on some loud music, and have a dance party. It's a great time, and it's a good family bonding experience.
Definitely.
So
exercise with us. It is going to help you out. It's going to make you happier and healthier, and that's what we all want. So
absolutely.
Thank you so much for listening. Don't forget to leave a 5-star review, like, comment, etc.
Subscribe on YouTube.
Yeah,
check us out. And don't forget, we do have new episodes coming out on Mondays.
We're going to try to get back to every week.
Yeah, we've missed a couple of weeks, but I think we're going to get back on track, and hopefully that won't happen again, at least not too often. We're not going to guarantee that it's going to be every Monday, because that just sets ourselves up for failure. So we are going to say that we're going to try and have a new episode out every Monday.
Yep. You can find us on Spotify, iTunes, Amazon, or whatever. I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah, Google, YouTube. I think we've talked about all of them already.
Yep.
And join us again next week, where we are going to be talking about some great stuff.
We're going to be talking about how to lower the hoop or move the goalpost closer. Basically, just make your goals feel more reachable.
Yeah. Set realistic goals.
Yeah.
I like it.
All right. We'll talk to you next week.
Yep. See ya.